I bought into the conspiracy theory that what happened was all a social experiment, and that maybe James Charles was even involved, and that there was going to be a big reveal in Shane's docu-series, and that I would be the fool who fell for it.
What?
I'm just like so nervous, like fourth hand.
I know. Oh my god.
43 minutes.
I have a weird feeling.
Same.
This is gonna be like Dramageddon Part 2.
It wasn't until the series ended in December that I started to realize what had actually happened.
Is James Charles a danger to society? Is he a predator? Kim?
I'm going to be talking about why I no longer support Jeffree Star Cosmetics, and Shane Dawson.
And I just don't want to be one of those people anymore that is scared to speak against Jeffree Star. See you guys in the next video. Oh, and if my body's found dead in a ditch somewhere, it's Jeffree Star. In March of 2021, Business Insider published an article called "Relationships Between Influencers and Their Fans Are Inherently Problematic." And I would love to know what you think of that title. Do you think that is true? In the case of James Charles, I feel like time has told, at least for him, that it is very true. And this article in particular came at a very specific time. It came in the wake of James Charles coming out and saying that he had inappropriately messaged two 16-year-old boys. In a video that he uploaded called "Holding Myself Accountable," he explains that he didn't understand the power dynamics at play that were discussed in this particular article. They interviewed a few experts for the Business Insider article, and one of them was Dr. Elizabeth L. Jeglick. She explained very clearly how the fan-celebrity parasocial relationship can lead inadvertently to predatory behavior. She explains, and I think this is a really important point, that even when the relationship is consensual between the star and the fan, because the fan really wants to hold on to this connection, they may do and say things that they normally wouldn't in order to either impress the celebrity or to stay in the celebrity's life. Child and adolescent psychologist Dr. Catherine Williams added, quote, "If you're feeling lonely, it's so easy to then fall prey to messaging back and forth with TikTok stars. So I do think that it's problematic because they're often not real life-based relationships." That parasocial relationship changes the entire dynamic of the interactions that they're having in real life, in that in the fans' perspective, their relationship started way before they started talking, where in the celebrity's eyes, they've never met this person before. And like we'll explore in this video, that power dynamic, that relationship, that parasocial connection really can complicate things. And we actually talked about this some in part 3 of this series, where we explored the relationship that James had with two people, Gage Gomez and Sam Cooke, who were 19 at the time, and how the celebrity fan power dynamic affected their relationships. And Sam and Gage ended up engaging with James, even though both of them say they weren't even sure if they were attracted to people of the same sex. Prior to that, to even add more to the story, we talked about how James has no boundaries when it comes to relationships and sharing about his relationships. Between unabashedly flirting with men who have said that they are straight, to telling explicit stories on his YouTube channel directly to his teenage brother, knowing that the vast majority of his fans were preteen girls, and then the conversation that that fellow YouTubers Tati Westbrook and Jeffree Star say happened at her birthday dinner in front of her friends and family, in front of James's parents. James talking about what he would do to the waiter in this very inappropriate setting.
I was just like, I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, I am used to this around, you know, everyone else, but not his parents. Like, I thought around his parents that he would not behave this way. Like, it was just like, no big deal. Like, ding. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, time and place. And you did it at my birthday dinner. And I made excuses for you then. You were talking in detail about things you wanted to do to the waiter. And when I said, James, he's straight, your response was, doesn't matter, I'm a celebrity. So freaking gross.
Just over and over again, there are reports of James just being extremely inappropriate, James having no filter when it comes to sharing about his most intimate life. He showed over and over again that he does not care if he makes people uncomfortable, and he doesn't seem to care how his actions affect other people at all. And Tati, his former mentor, had come to him and said, hey, James, this is gonna get you in trouble one day. And James said, yeah, I hear you, but clearly he did not hear Tati, and he's continued that behavior over and over again.
I literally, eye to eye, had enough respect for you and love for you and care for you to tell you to go and get some help. I told you that this was not good and that you could have your career completely destroyed.
There's so much to the story that I have not told yet. And the big piece we're going to focus on today is how the tides turned after Dramageddon 2 for other people in this situation, for Jeffree Star, for Shane Dawson, for Tati Westbrook, and how the downfall of his three accusers may have encouraged his ego and his brazenness and his desire to continue to have inappropriate conversations. Inappropriate conversations fueled by his ego, his arrogance, and his perceived power. This, my friend, is Behind the Controversy, James Charles, Part 4. And it's starting right now. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to my channel. If you've been here before, if you are new here, hi, my name is Jen. You're coming in on a banger, so welcome. I hope that you enjoy it. It is very nice to meet you. Just in case you are not aware, I create videos here about makeup news. Every weekend I have a makeup news show called What's Been Makeup. We talk about what's currently happening in the industry. So if you want current events, that's where you'll find that. But on Fridays, I like to explore other topics. I like to do deep dives on things that either happened in the past or things that are happening right now and look at them from a different lens and really talk about how it affects us as people, how it affects our choices in who we decide to watch, and how it affects the beauty industry as a whole. And if you're jumping in here now, yes, this is part 4. You don't necessarily need to have watched parts 1 and 2 of this series for this to make sense, but I highly recommend you watch part 3 before watching this because it is, you need that background knowledge. But if that is too long of a video, it is long. I get it. I will put some breakdowns of Dramageddon 2 articles down in the video description if you want like just a quick rundown of what happened. But I do think you'll be at a significant advantage if you've watched part 3. Also, if you have watched part 1 and 2, I think you'll be at even more of an advantage because we're going to build on the themes that we built during those 2 videos. I also want to give a trigger warning that this video is going to talk about sensitive topics, including inappropriate interactions with minors and other things. So I would love if you would protect yourself first, make sure you are in a good space before you watch this. Please always take care of you first. As a segue, I want to remind you of the person we've established James Charles to be through his public patterns of behavior, his arrogance, his unwillingness to listen when someone tells him to stop, his view of the world as a game to be won, his lack of care, again, for how his actions affect other people. all of those personality traits that he's demonstrated in the past are going to come into play in this video. James has gone from awkward teenager to the stereotypical arrogant celebrity in a matter of a few years. And that continues to set him up for the scandals that he has got himself into all the way up until very recently. And with that being said, it is now time to pick up where we left off in the late summer, early fall of 2019. James has quote unquote won Dramageddon 2, and he continues to thrive professionally. Tati Westbrook's reputation has been damaged, but she's trying to move on, and Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson are about to embark on a very public adventure that is going to give them a lot of attention and a lot of money. However, their success is going to be short-lived when their past comes back to haunt them. Where we're starting this part of the story is with a very important trailer. It was the trailer for the series that Jeffree and Shane worked on called The Beautiful World of Jeffree Star. And when I say people lost their shit when they saw this trailer in anticipation of this series, people lost their shit. The producer and director of this series was Shane Dawson, and I think that it's really important to recognize who Shane Dawson was perceived to be during this period of time. He was acclaimed. He was loved. His documentary series, I don't know what the plural of series is, but the things that he was making were garnering tens of millions of views, and Shane was getting all the accolades for putting them together. Even his conspiracy theory videos that he filmed outside of his docuseries garnered between 3 and 10 million views per video, but the documentaries he did on popular YouTubers were a whole nother level. For example, the one that he did on Trisha Paytas in January of 2018 got 31 million views. What brought me personally to Shane's channel was when he did a little series on Bunny Meyer, who was well known as Graveyard Girl. And I think a lot of us in the beauty space found Shane through the Graveyard Girl video because Bunny's content was kind of beauty adjacent. And a lot of us in the beauty space also watched Bunny's videos. Shane followed that up with a very interesting video on Tana Mojo, where she goes deep into her TanaCon debacle that people had a lot of questions about, and Tana answered a lot of those questions in that video, so that video blew up. He also did a similar series on Jeffree Star. He did one on Jake Paul. He did one on Eugenia Cooney, and this was really interesting what he did because he chose people from different niches across YouTube, people that had very different audiences. So what that did was it brought people from their audiences, from a Jake Paul audience, from a Trisha Paytas audience, from a Eugenia Cooney audience, and brought them together onto Shane's channel, where they then became fans of Shane. And his subscriber count was growing exponentially as a result. One of his most popular series on the channel up to that point was the one that he had done with Jeffree Star, kind of talking about his past. And he had 5 videos in that series. The series as a whole got over 175 million views in total. So the natural progression there, because Shane and Jeffree had then developed a friendship, was to do a second series. And that was how The Beautiful World of Jeffree Star was born. As part of that, Shane and Jeffree, a main theme of that series was Shane and Jeffree developing an eyeshadow palette together called the Conspiracy Palette. But it's important to note the timeline here in that they started filming in February of that year. So that was a little over 2 weeks after Tati's legendary birthday dinner.
And you did it at my birthday dinner.
And now, 4 months after Bye Sister and No More Lies, here comes the trailer for their next series. Another thing I want to stress here, and I know some people are not going to believe this in hindsight, but this is really true. A lot of people that were watching Shane's conspiracy theory videos, his documentaries, were not familiar with the content that Shane had been making prior to that. I know as of now, all of that content that we're going to talk about later that was really awful had been deleted from his channel. So you would have had to have really searched for it in order to find it. I'm pretty sure it was gone then, but I cannot tell you for 100% because me, the research queen of the world, didn't even look into it. I just believed who Shane was presenting himself to be. He presented himself as this kind, goofy underdog who happened to have a talent at telling stories and interviewing people and getting them to spill their guts. That's all I knew of Shane Dawson, and I was a fan at that point. I will 100% admit it. I am definitely not a fan now, but we'll get to that. So behind the scenes, what we didn't know at the time as viewers was that tensions were really high. According to Tati Westbrook, while the series was being produced, she was led to believe that the docuseries was going to expose James as a predator and that the allegations against him were going to become public because they were going to be part of the docuseries.
Over the next few weeks, Jeffree began talking to me about how Shane Dawson was a big fan of mine and wanted to meet me, and how I should be involved in their docuseries. I wish I had researched him better. I wish I had watched his old videos. I wish I had educated myself and I was aware of his earlier content. All I knew at the time was that Shane Dawson was the most adored documentary filmmaker on YouTube, so I invited him over to my home to play with makeup and to get to know him. He told me that God had called me to be a beacon of light for the world, so that it could be a better place. He also shared that Jeffree had wanted me to have a small role in their docuseries. But the entire series was quickly changing because there was something horrible happening in our community with James Charles. He said that James Charles was a monster with many victims. Yes, I knew that Shane was friends with Jeffree and that they were working together, but I thought to myself, why would Shane Dawson, the king of truth on YouTube, be turning against James Charles unless these things he was saying were true? Why would Shane sit in my home and spend so many hours telling me these horrific allegations if they were not true? Shane said that James Charles was a monster and that James Charles was hurting minors. Shane said he was planning to interview victims for the docuseries. He told me that something needed to be done to stop him from hurting more people. Over the course of the next few weeks, he and Jeffree fed me so much information that I felt sick. Almost every day, there was more information and new allegations. Eventually, I started believing what they were saying because they said they had evidence. By the time the drama around James Charles's promotion of Sugar Bear Hair reached its peak, I was beyond gaslit. Shane Dawson didn't just know about my Bye Sister video. He offered to help edit it. He even offered to design the thumbnail and help title it. I declined his offer, but his gesture supported and reinforced for me that he was telling the truth. Why else would he jeopardize his career? So surely Jeffree was telling the truth too. Keep in mind that up until this point, I didn't even know I was making a video. So how is it that so many editorial outlets knew that something was coming before I had even made a decision to film? The day the video went up, Shane requested to come over to my home and film and document what was happening. I declined. After a few days of Jeffree fanning the flames on Twitter, no victims appeared as they had stated would happen, and no evidence came forward as they stated would happen. The last time I spoke with either Jeffree or Shane on the phone was the night before Jeffree's "Never Doing This Again" video. Shortly after, the relationship dissolved entirely, and I was so confused.
And the timeline here is really important because the conversation that Tati's talking about here that happened, she says it happened in late April or early May of 2019. Now, the trailer for the series didn't launch until late August. So imagine you're Tati and you've uploaded Bye Sister and you've essentially torched your friendship with someone that's been in your life for a while, that did your wedding makeup, and you have caused this huge internet blow up that has gone to mainstream media. YouTube has changed their policies on how we see subscriber counts due to it. It has been a mess, and you know, because you're Tati Westbrook, you know that you started that, and for 4 months, you are waiting to see whether it was all worth it, whether you made the right choice, because apparently this docuseries that Shane and Jeffree are developing is going to fill in the holes for the public about what was happening behind the scenes. So in late September, Shane drops the trailer for the docuseries, and it starts off with a young lady talking, and her name is Katie Turner. She's talking about being awkward and not popular and accepting that she'll never be prom queen. And that's what the song is about. It's about being an awkward teenager and recognizing that you'll never be popular.
Sometimes you don't feel like a winner, and you have to write a song about it. And that's what I did.
It sets the stage perfectly for awkward, goofy Shane Dawson and glamorous Jeffree Star working together to help Shane have his moment in the spotlight to finally be the hero of a story. And with the background of Katie's song playing, we see various clips of Shane and Jeffree interacting. We see their friendship. We see them developing products together. We see Shane practicing his makeup skills, which the internet had never seen him do before. We see Shane looking awkward while Jeffree looks like the consummate professional. And then at about 2 minutes and 49 seconds into the 4-minute and 20-second long trailer, we see that the docuseries is going to talk about Dramageddon 2. I'm actually going to play this part for you, and I really hope that I don't get a copyright thing on the music. If I do, I'm going to have to play different music. But hopefully you're hearing the actual song, because it really does lend to the story.
It's okay, it's alright. The jealousy in my bones won't rattle tonight. Oh, burn the signs and smash the tiara. No, no, that's not me. I'll never be prom queen. No, that's not me. I'll never be prom queen.
Over the next month, Shane and Jeffree's 7-video series would get a total of about 169 million views across the series, with each video being about an hour long. Timeline-wise, just so we can keep track of other people, while this series is rolling out, Tati's launching Tati Beauty. While she's collectively freaking out about what's going to come out in this docuseries, she's launching an entire cosmetic line.
I bought into the conspiracy theory that what happened was all a social experiment, and that maybe James Charles was even involved, and that there was going to be a big reveal in Shane's docuseries, and that I would be the fool who fell for it. Shane never reached out to check on me, and he never shared the trailer with me. The last time we spoke on the phone was before Jeffree's apology video, and I asked him to not include the drama in the series. He only texted me after the trailer was live with an audio message telling me to not worry about it, that drama was only going to be 1 episode. For the next few months, I was tormented with subtweets and innuendo that there was a huge drama around the corner. I felt that I was a liability to them and that I knew too much, so I put all of my text messages and other files on a hard drive and told a few people that I was afraid for my life and had given everything to my lawyers. I was hoping that information would leak, as I thought it might keep me safe. My mental and physical health suffered. My businesses suffered. It was all I could do to pull myself together for the launch of Tati Beauty. That night helped me so much to everyone that came, because I felt like I didn't have community anymore. And I was too ashamed to even think about inviting anyone from my community. And I'm just so grateful to my subscribers that showed up for me. And I just hope that you're still there. I got a heart attack.
James Charles is, by the way, he's launching a mini version of his palette collaboration that he did with Morphe. So they're trying to go on with their lives, like not knowing what's going to happen. The day after part 4 of Shane's series, we see Tati proving that this is what's going on in her brain. She put up an Instagram post, and that Instagram post was just a few words, and it said, "I seriously cannot wait until all the pieces come together and I finally understand why I went through everything I did." I know I at the time had no idea what that meant. I imagine most people didn't, but now in hindsight, we absolutely do know what it meant. And let's resonate on it for a minute, because Tati is still thinking that Shane's docuseries is going to really give her the why. Why did I throw away my friendship with James Charles? Why did I go through this whole thing? Why am I losing all of these subscribers? Why did I put myself out there like this? The docuseries is going to put those pieces together and really explain it. Spoiler, it's not going to. My memory told me that Shane's docuseries never even talked about Dramageddon 2, but I was wrong. That's not actually what happened. Everything that they had put in the trailer was actually in Shane's docuseries in the final episode. But what wasn't in there was the big bombshell that Tati was expecting and that she was told would be in there. The final episode of the series was called The Beautiful World of Shane Dawson, and it aired on November 22nd of 2019, 6.5 months after Bye Sister, and it showed everything it could show. The episode starts off with news channels and drama channels speculating on what Shane was going to talk about with regard to Dramageddon 2.
Has left a lot of fans wondering what happened to all the drama we were promised in the trailer.
I am a little bit upset with Mr. Shane.
Shane himself said he's a little lost on where to go right now.
He doesn't want to put James Charles and Jeffree Star's fight into the series. He got a lot of backlash.
No, what we're not gonna do, Shane, is tease me at the beginning of your series and then just leave me there. It's like a guy going, and you're like, oh, baby girl, yes, and then just walking away. No.
People, they just want to see Shane Dawson's reaction to the drama unfolding.
Like, I want to see the exact, like, in the moment, when it was getting filmed, like, the reaction, all that. Like, I want to see, like, the raw, like, footage.
Whoa, girl, that's a lot.
That's
You're
a lot,
asking
girl.
for a
That's a lot,
lot.
girl.
If they even have the footage.
Oh, you know they do.
The trailer had promised that there was gonna be tea about Dramageddon 2 in the docuseries, but it hadn't appeared yet. Then for the next 6 minutes of the entire series, Shane fulfills on what people were waiting for this whole time. But it wasn't what people were expecting, and it definitely wasn't what Tati was expecting. It was literally just Shane and his friends watching everything go down and a summary of what happened. That was it.
What?
I'm just like so nervous, like fourth hand.
I know. Oh my god.
43 minutes.
I have a weird feeling.
Same.
This is gonna be like Dramageddon part 2.
What the f is going on? Wait, what are you doing? Are you like...
Somebody screenshotted his social blade. Oh my god. Oh my god. And everybody's saying they're unsubscribing. This is crazy.
What is this?
I'm so disappointed.
I hate this. I feel like everything has gone way too far. It's such like a, oh, let's jump on this shit, let's milk this shit. you know, all the drama channels, and I totally get it. Like, I understand 100%, but like, we know this person. We lifted this person up. You know, people have been buying his palette. All these people have been going to his meet and greets. Like, everybody lifted this person up, and it's so quickly, like I've never seen before, they fucking dropped him down. It was so immediate and such a flip that, like, it's scary and also sad. This needs to be a lesson for the whole internet and for beauty communities and everything. No matter how angry you are, how justified you are, it's not worth it. So, Tati removed her video and basically posted a tweet saying, I stand by what I said, but I'm sorry at how it all went down and I'm gonna take some time off.
But the most revealing thing for me, and where I think it did stray from that path, was a little piece of him talking to Jeffree Star about everything that was happening. And it sounds like in this clip, he might be talking about the voice note. You know, the voice note that he's been sharing as his big piece of evidence with people like Ashley Kyle.
Jeffree didn't post his receipts.
So we're here to break down the aftermath of Jeffree Star inserting himself into this ongoing beauty YouTuber drama.
Things that I went through by involving myself, I think it was a huge life lesson for me. That's what I mean on a selfish level.
But thank God, because I didn't want to go that route.
Yeah.
And it's not my job to expose someone else's story when it's about something that is alleged, because no one knows what really happened. It's not my job. It's not my career. My career is making makeup and having fun and making art, and this has just really sidetracked me, and I'm embarrassed that I let it get to this stage, and I'm just glad that I had a fucking full wake-up call.
But that was literally it. I feel like that was the only piece that the audience didn't already know. And even that piece, there really wasn't a lot of new information. So in summary, what you need to know about this part is that people were expecting this big expose piece on James Charles. Tati says in a video that she releases later that Jeffree had told her that not only was James a predator, but that he was hurting minors. Tati thought that was going to be in the docuseries. That was what she said she was led to believe. None of it was in there. And when the series ends, I think that it was a general collective thought that we had all been duped into watching a multi-part, many-hour-long commercial for the Jeffree Star Shane Dawson collaboration that was the Conspiracy Collection. And it worked. Y'all, it worked, because supposedly, allegedly, it all went very, very well for them as far as sales. According to Jeffree, the palette broke Jeffree Star Cosmetics records, selling over 1 million palettes in 30 minutes. Rumor has it that the makeup itself ended up netting about $10 million, with the split being 25% to Shane. And then Shane took 25% of what he made and he gave that to his editor. And I think he was a producer on it as well, Andrew. The rest of it went to Jeffree. So if this is true, Shane made about $2.5 million just off of the palette sales. Andrew made about $625,000, and Jeffree made about $7.5 million. So long story short, way too late. Where we're at is that Shane and Jeffree have made a ton of money. James Charles was not exposed, and Tati had publicly ended her relationship with James Charles. She had tarnished her reputation. She had sabotaged her own career in thinking that she was doing the right thing, but Shane was not granting her a redemption arc, and she was figuratively just left there, all alone, holding the bag. After the docuseries ended, to us, publicly, everything was relatively quiet for about the next 5 months or so. But behind the scenes, everybody involved was going through something. Tati was going through a lot. She had to accept that she had tarnished her reputation and that the evidence that Jeffree said that he had, that James had been hurting minors, didn't exist. The alleged victim on the voice note decided that he was going to remain silent. Sam, the waiter from Seattle, aka the busboy from Bellevue, had retracted a lot of his statements. Tati felt like she had been tricked, that she had been deceived. So in order to rectify that, she invited James Charles over to her house in December. This is what Tati said happened.
It wasn't until the series ended in December when James Charles and I met that I started to realize what had actually happened. Over the next few months, a few people have bravely come forward with more information, and the pieces of what we believe actually happened are coming together. I can tell you this. It's now my opinion that Jeffree and Shane were both bitterly jealous of James Charles's success. Jeffree resented that so much of his business was centered around his biggest rival, and Shane did not like that James Charles wanted to make a documentary. Neither of them were happy with standing in his shadow on YouTube anymore. I believe James Charles was gaining more followers and receiving more views and more press faster than anyone in the history on the platform. And it's also my opinion that Jeffree and Shane needed James marginalized and out of the way for their November launch of the Conspiracy Palette along with Shane's merch.
Around this same time, Tati said that her marriage was falling apart, that due to something else that was going on, which was a fight between her and their business partner, Clark Swanson, who was a friend of her husband, James. Due to all of that conflict, Tati and her husband separated for a while during this period of time.
I had, James was around me. We actually had planned on moving to Hawaii. My audience doesn't know that either. We had put an offer in on a home in Lahaina. James's mom lived in Hawaii before she passed. So we spent a lot of time there. We got married on
Maui.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was setting up a new studio, like had my stuff ready to go back to filming. So it's kind of funny. You're like, how did you persevere? And it's like, really, I'm just putting one foot in front of the other. And I was ready to kind of get back to YouTube. And then it's like, but wait, there's more. And then a minority partner in Halo Beauty, Clark Swanson, sent a demand letter threatening to file a lawsuit if we didn't give him $30 million, a third of Tati Beauty. What else did he want? $30 million.
More. There's more.
A third of Tati Beauty and all of Halo Beauty. So it's like, give me this or I'm going to file a lawsuit. That kind of took me out emotionally more than any of the other drama. Like that was big. He was a friend of ours and this was going to be public, and it is public and nasty, and it has become nasty. And that was the real reason that I had to stay offline for the time that I did. That hiatus of, it was like 10 months. Who was there for you? Like besides James, of course. James wasn't there the whole time because we broke up for a brief time. We were headed toward divorce. I mean, if you can imagine, that was a close friend of his. And it's like this person who's your friend is creating this drama in our life and trying to take things that I've built. And it was really tough. So there was a time, long story short, we didn't close on the house in Lahaina. We left Hawaii. And James and I split for a time.
Around December 15th, Tati announced to her audience that she was permanently moving back to her hometown of Seattle.
And my family's still in Washington, so I stayed up there. He was out of the picture for a time, and this was still during pretty significant restrictions with COVID. So there was like 3 months where I didn't see anyone. I was literally alone, no James, no family, no friends, alone, no YouTube, dealing with this crazy catastrophe. It was wild. I'm so sorry. That's truly the darkest point of my life. Out of all of the wild that I've been through, that segment of time was the darkest, but I also grew the most.
Now, Tati does a lot of moving and selling of houses and stuff during this period of time, but I don't think that it's necessarily relevant to the story, even though I do have it in my timeline. I'm just going to leave that part out. But there is a part that I am going to include, and that's the reason why Tati says that she moved around so much. And she says it's because she was afraid of Jeffree Star.
For the next few months, I was tormented with subtweets and innuendo that there was a huge drama around the corner. I felt that I was a liability to them and that I knew too much. So I put all of my text messages and other files on a hard drive and told a few people that I was afraid for my life and had given everything to my lawyers. I was hoping that information would leak, as I thought it might keep me safe. My mental and physical health suffered. My businesses suffered. It was all I could do to pull myself together for the launch of Tati Beauty.
By January of 2020, James Charles was talking about going back to Coachella, having the best Coachella yet in 2020. Tati continued to stay quiet about what she was going through behind the scenes and the impact that all of the things that had happened prior was having on her life. She launched the Blendiful, which was a blending tool that she launched with Tati Beauty. Meanwhile, Shane and Jeffree were actually plotting to launch another eyeshadow palette together. And this was going to be called the Doomsday Palette, which is strange because we're now in February of 2020 and we all know what happens in March of 2020, and they're developing this apocalyptic, end of the world kind of eyeshadow palette called Doomsday. Just as a side note, that palette never launched, but I think that's really interesting that they kind of almost predicted the global pandemic. To add in another internet personality, exactly 1 year from Tati's birthday dinner on February 14th of 2020, Trisha Paytas was with Jeffree Star and a bunch of other people in Las Vegas. And apparently Trisha left this event early because Jeffree Star was being so awful to her. According to reports, she left because he was attacking her skin, her weight, her appearance, her personality, her spending habits, and her substance abuse issues. She would later go on to break up publicly with Jeffree Star over these things and other things. But again, I'm not trying to get off on too far of a tangent because Trisha is a whole nother story that we could spend 5 episodes talking about. Let's fast forward just a couple of weeks to March 2nd, and James Charles is living his best life. He's doing great. He's quote unquote won Dramageddon 2, and he's creating content and everything's going really well. And then he gets served a lawsuit from a former employee named Kelly Rockline. This lawsuit is specifically about her employment with him in 2018, where she says she was overworked and underpaid. She also says that James wrongfully terminated her employment. Lawyer Emily D. Baker covered this back in the spring of 2021. I'm going to link her video down below if you want to get the actual legal perspective on what happened here, but here is a quick summary of what Emily says in that video. So apparently Kelly claimed that she started working for James in April of 2018 and she was his video editor, but she was doing such a good job and she was so valuable to James that he promoted her to producer. But the problem was that James neglected to hire another video editor to replace that job. And then what I'm gathering happened is that Kelly, at the same pay, became both producer and video editor without a pay raise. Kelly says this led to a 12-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week work schedule. So Kelly, being a human being, is naturally getting exhausted. And she goes to James and she's like, dude, like, I cannot be producer and video editor. You have got to hire a video editor. And also, I need a raise. And he said that he would give her, at least according to the lawsuit, he would give her a pay raise in 6 months and he would back pay her on the hours that she worked. Because in California, they have a lot of laws protecting people from very long work hours. There's very specific rules as far as overtime pay, and I think that's due to the large presence of the entertainment industry in California. There's lots of protections in place to protect those workers, and James, according to the lawsuit, was not following those rules. So in addition to that, about 5 months after she's working for James, some accident happened. We don't know what happened, but she gets a concussion, and it happens while James is there. He sees her get this concussion and she ends up going in an ambulance to the hospital. So she's in the hospital caring for her head and she gets this text message from James, again, according to her. And she says that James was not sympathetic and was wondering why the videos weren't getting edited. In the lawsuit, it says that James said something like, I want to be your friend, but I'm your employer. And the fact that your health was the reason the video didn't go up doesn't make it a reason for an upload not to take place. Ew. Just, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine getting that. And I can't even imagine telling somebody that. Like, again, this is all alleged, but if that happened, that is freaking awful. So Kelly goes on and she gets out of the hospital, but she keeps having to go back to the doctors because something just isn't right. And on the 4th visit, she's readmitted to the hospital. And while she's there, the doctor is like, look, you need to rest. You need to take a week off. You need to chill because you're not doing well. So she takes her week off. And what she says happened next was that when she went back to work after her week off, when the doctor told her she needed to take a week off, James promptly fired her for not doing a good job. Because it appears James didn't believe that Kelly was actually told by her doctor not to work. He texted her, again, according to the lawsuit, just protecting my butt here, that he knew that Kelly's friend was in town, and during that time period he was like, oh well, just have fun with your friend or whatever, you know, instead of acknowledging that she was in the hospital, basically accusing her of lying and just hanging out with her friend instead and taking the week off to do that. It is important to note that in the suit, James denies that any of this happened. And of course, this lawsuit in our timeline is ongoing, but we're going to pause on it for now because the story gets really wild, but not quite yet. So we all know what happened in March of 2020. Basically, the entire world shut down due to the spread of COVID-19. By mid-March, after more than 118,000 cases of COVID-19 in 114 countries and 4,291 deaths, the World Health Organization declared that we were in a global pandemic. And online, things were strangely calm between Jeffree Star and James Charles. Jeffree, quote, tweeted a post showing the look that James had done on extremely popular TikToker Charli D'Amelio, complimenting James on his makeup skills. James didn't respond publicly to this, so I don't know what was happening, if anything was happening behind the scenes, but people started wondering, why is Jeffree talking to James? Are they friends again? What is going on? I personally believe that it may have been due to the fact that James was on the verge of a possible huge publicity growth moment of his career, because James had actually somehow scored a reality TV show with YouTube itself called Instant Influencer. And I say that out of cynicism because I know why he got it, obviously. I know how he got it. He was riding high, of course. I'm not a James Charles fan, so I think they came off a little more skeptical than it should have been. It was obvious why YouTube wanted to work with him on the series. So the show was a reality series, and it was a basic format of a competition show where the whole premise is that people are competing to be the next James Charles. Yes, that is the entire plot. Yes, it is still up on YouTube, and you could watch it if you choose. The recurring celebrity judge on the show was a woman named Norvina, who was the CEO, I think still is the CEO, of Anastasia Beverly Hills. And I think that it's important to note, if you were not around during that period of time, how big Norvina was in our space. Norvina had built up this whole thing with Anastasia Beverly Hills where people were trying to get on the ABH PR list and posting and trying to get on this list, and then big celebrations when they got on the list, and then they got these huge PR packages, and then it turned into a big debacle and it all went bad. I actually have a full video on what happened, the rise and fall of the ABH PR list. It's actually one of my first Behind the Controversy videos. I will link that down below if you want to hear that story. But anyway, what you need to know right now is that Norvina was known as the CEO of an extremely popular makeup brand, and that she was very in touch with influencer culture. So her being the celebrity judge on this show made a lot of sense, and it was a big win for YouTube and James to have her on the show. Along with that, they did have some guest judges that included Paris Hilton, Trixie Mattel, Morphe makeup artist Lipstick Nick, and also Mario De Ivanovic, who owns Makeup by Mario, but he was first came to the public eye as Kim Kardashian's makeup artist. There was one challenge that the people in the show did that got a lot of press, and It was when they had the contestants create, as part of wanting to be an influencer, creating an apology video. And of course, they're smearing their makeup and they're fake crying and they're doing all the things. And people were not sure why James chose to make this a challenge. I personally think he was just trying to have fun with it and make light of apology videos. But a lot of people were looking at it and being like, okay, so what are you saying here? That all of your apologies were scripted, that it wasn't real, that it was just part of the influencer job to apologize and that there was no genuine feeling behind the apology. Now saying that out loud, that does kind of make sense. It's definitely possible that was the motivation, but it's up to interpretation. I don't know if we'll ever know the answer to that. But the fact is that Instant Influencer was a huge success for James. It was a huge success for YouTube. There were 5 videos in the series and it got a collective 84 million views. And it actually earned a Streamy Award, which is an award show specifically for social media. The award they won was Show of the Year. So while we were all dealing with the early stages of the pandemic, people had time. And they had time to really think about and wonder, why is Jeffree Star now forgiving James Charles? Why is he trying to be friends with him when he had called James a predator and said that he was a danger to society? Why was Jeffree doing that? And what people learned through a bit of digging is that Jeffree had done this before, that this was actually a pattern of behavior. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what happened. In 2010, Jeffree was super into his music and he was touring with other independent groups. And during that time, he became friends with a man named Davi Vanity. Davi's band, Blood on the Dance Floor, was a band that Jeffree toured with. And while they were on tour, Davi allegedly had inappropriate relationships with underage girls on his tour bus. And this is where we're going to bring in another person who's going to be really important to this segment of the story, and her name is Blair White. Now, I want to caution you before you go over, if you decide to check out Blair's content, she is kind of the Candace Owens of the trans community in that she really supports a lot of anti-trans rhetoric, even though she is trans herself. I am not a fan of most of her takes, but I think that she's so important to the story, and she actually does lend a different point of view through the content she creates about all of these things. So I think it's really important to include her in the story. But just as a warning, I do not support Blair and I do not support her current points of view. So Blair says in a video that she had been thinking about doing a video about Jeffree and his relationship with Davi and the flip-flop he had there and connecting that to the flip-flop with James Charles. She tweeted something about it. Jeffree immediately contacted her and tried to get her to stop and not make the video. As part of that, Jeffree, according to Blair, played her the infamous voice note.
The idea of doing this video is something that I've gone back and forth on, and that has weighed very heavily on my conscience for about a month, preceding a very disturbing FaceTime call I had with Jeffree Star, who this video is about, as well as other people this video is going to be about as well, which I'll bring in. I was put in a very bad position by Jeffree Star that I don't feel like I deserve to be in, to where I was told things that I'm either silent about and then therefore in a way complicit with some really messed up crap, or I speak about and then put my shit on the line. And I don't feel like it's fair for me to be in that position. And a year ago, if you guys remember, when he launched some accusations against James Charles, specifically that James Charles is a sexual predator, I was live saying that Jeffree was a mess for that because he's refusing to provide receipts for that claim. He was promising to provide them and then backed off and said, I don't want any part of the drama. Here is my opinion. Jeffree has no receipts. I think Jeffree was loving the downfall of James, and now that it's backfiring, he wants to dip out. And I keep saying you can't put your toe in and then your toe out. He didn't put a toe in. He like body slammed his way in, tried to ruin this kid's life. And now he's saying, I'm in a really bad place. It's a really dark place for me. And I don't want to do this. And first of all, sexual predation is not drama. As a rape survivor, I don't feel that it's drama. So I need to be specific about how he came into contact. He reached out to me via DMs on Twitter. However, the conversation proceeded, it got to him asking me, so what's your opinion of James Charles? And keep in mind, a year ago, he called James Charles a predator and then refused to back it up with the receipts he promised he had. I told him my honest view, which is one that I was public with a year ago when it happened, and said, I felt like if you were going to call him a predator and promise that you had the receipts, you should have proven it and you should have provided those receipts and you shouldn't have tried to back out of it. I didn't feel that was right. He said, okay, I respect it, but do you want to know the truth? And this is the point where I wish I would have said no, in a way, but in a way not. He then provided me with receipts of a voice memo from a YouTuber who was allegedly sexually molested by James Charles. And it's credible. It's a YouTuber. It's credible. It is not my place to out this YouTuber's name at all. I have privately reached out to this YouTuber and said, hey, I'm a rape survivor myself, because I am. And I should never have been told this, but I want to let you know it's okay to go public with your story. It's okay to be heard, or even just to talk to me if you need to, because I am a survivor myself. So I'm in shock after being given this information by Jeffree, and then Jeffree proceeds to tell me, James will never attack me because I have this on him. I have shit on everyone, which he has said publicly before. I have shit on everyone.
Because I have dirt on everyone, and they know to keep their mouths shut.
I don't view something like this as gossip that you hold over someone's head or whatever. This is something serious. This is a crime. And just the fact that he's blackmailing people with this is disgusting. And the fact that I am expected to hold on to this information as well. And just the shocking fact that this is our first interaction ever and he's telling me this, I'm like, how many other people know this and have heard this voice memo? And yes, it did take me a month to do this video, but that's because I have been scared. This is something serious. And I want to be very clear, this is not my place to out this person, you know, the victim's name, because this is clearly their story to tell. But you guys have to understand the position I'm in. If I receive credible information that a very famous, very powerful YouTuber is a sexual molester or sexual predator, but am I complicit with helping cover up for a sexual predator by not saying that at least that much is true? That's the battle that's been going on in my head. And part of the reason why I'm doing this video is to come to you guys and ask, if you guys know this information, what would you do with it? Because I don't know. I don't think I can go to the police on someone else's behalf. I'm scared to say names. I'm scared to reveal what I know. But at the same time, how do I hold on to it knowing there's more victims potentially? If someone's just getting away with it.
This is the same voice note that he had played for Tati when Tati said that it wasn't enough for her to contact authorities, but it was enough to scare her.
I struggled with the decision to film my video for days. The night before I did film, Jeffree sent me what he claimed was an audio file from an alleged victim and told me to listen to the pain in their voice. The audio was clearly a small portion of a larger conversation. It wasn't enough for me to contact the authorities. It was enough to scare me.
And then you see the next text message and it says, oh my God, that's disgusting. Well, that's because Jeffree Star had sent me a voice note. Now, in that voice memo was when he basically said to me that James Charles was a point blank period. He did not go into details at the time, but he basically, that was what he implied. So I said, oh my God, that's disgusting. And he said, we're all questioning if he has a soul.
He's playing this now for Blair, who he does not know. They are not friends, but he's using it as a tool to get Blair to not make this expose video comparing his relationship to Davi to his relationship with James Charles. Blair says specifically that the voice note is a popular YouTuber, and it talks about specifically that James had them. And I don't know what happened between Blair and Jeffree in this conversation, and I don't know why, but Blair then does not make the video with the comparison between the relationship with Davi and the relationship with James Charles. The strategy worked, and he got Blair to not make it. Jeffree decided that instead of letting Blair make the expose video and having it be on Blair's term, what he was going to do was he was going to go on an interview with a man named named Chris Hansen. And you may have heard that name before because Chris Hansen, he's mostly known for a series called To Catch a Predator. And Jeffree went on his podcast and allowed Chris to ask him a bunch of questions. Now, this interview is specifically critiqued, saying that Chris did not ask Jeffree hard-hitting questions, that Jeffree manipulated the conversation and got Chris to go easy on him, which is probably, you know, in my opinion, what Jeffree wanted. So he wanted his narrative, in my opinion, to come out before someone like Blair could blow up his spot and give her opinion. 2 days later, Jeffree appeared on a second podcast, this one being Mom's Basement, which is run by FaZe Banks and Keemstar. And if you're not familiar with them, just know that they are very famous across the internets and usually in stirring up drama, commentary. I honestly don't know a ton about them. That's all I know about them. And because they're not the subject of this video, I didn't spend a lot of time getting to know who Keemstar was. I just know a lot of people don't like the guy. In the podcast, Jeffree is directly asked about his relationship with Davi Vanity and the tweet that he had put out many, many years ago that he had seen Davi do inappropriate things with young girls, but then later on, he ended up going on tour with Davi. And like, why would you then become friends with somebody if you know that they are this terrible person, right?
But no, I never saw an illegal crime. And when I talked to Chris Hansen, we'll talk about that.
That's crazy.
I told him that I saw inappropriate things, and people are taking that and running with it. Like, well, if you saw inappropriate things, you should have told some. No, I'm talking about like when you're dancing on stage. Yeah, you grind on people, you slap their ass. It was all part of the show, but when you tell someone that doesn't understand the rock world or that world, they take even what I'm saying right now out of context.
Yeah.
So you can't win.
People are getting hung up on it. Okay, so it's an old tweet from you, Jeffree, that says, I'm going to speak the truth until I die. We saw Davi bring underage girls to his hotel room and do sexual things 100%. So that's the thing where they're like,
yes,
he saw. Yeah.
Was that you assuming that happened?
No, that's people in the music scene telling me and me speaking for them.
Okay.
Did I see with my own eyes? No. Were we on tour a few times and there was always people around? Yeah, and I mentioned this yesterday and people were kind of shook. Mothers would bring their daughters to these shows.
I mean, that's such a misleading tweet, isn't it? That's so misleading.
Which part?
No? We saw Davi bring underage girls to his hotel rooms and do things 100% illegal. Of course, people are going to interpret that as you seeing that with your own eyes.
Oh, of course. Here, I'm telling people, did I see a crime or anything actual illegal? No. Other people did and told me that at the time. And then it was not proven. 4 children themselves, a grown mother. As his band members say, Jeffree, I've been in his world for years and I've lived on the tour bus and I've never seen anything. So that's why I did the last tour. Did I ever actually see anything? No. So my tweets were other people saying that, or maybe I'm saying it wrong. No. And people are connecting that, hey, you called this person out and then you worked with a pedophile again. And I'm like, oh, we're not doing this. He was never my brother. I was convinced by people and him that he was not who people thought he was. And it worked for a short amount of time. And then things really came to light and we all said, F you. All his band members quit and it all fell apart and we all said bye.
And get this was Jeffree's answer. He said that because he didn't see things with his own eyes like he had claimed publicly that he did, he decided going on tour with Davi a year later in 2012 was an okay thing to do. Does that sound familiar?
I have been very outspoken and sometimes I've spoken too much. And I think that this week was definitely one of those scenarios. Now, most of you have seen some brutal tweets that I sent out last week. A lot of you have seen the vicious text messages that I sent, and I want to let you understand something. Because I said those things, that does not equal me hating James Charles. He has been in my life for a few years now. Are we the best of friends? No. But we had a real connection. I loved and cared about him, and I definitely think I mishandled our friendship. Today, I am not going to give the world what they want. And I don't think that everyone wants this from me, but I think that there is a major portion that thinks Jeffree Star is going to come for James because I was in a dark place yesterday. I said some things online about pulling receipts and showing things.
There are so many things that you guys don't know. And you know me. If you've been following me for a long time, bitch, I am not a liar. All I know is honesty, and I am hurt right now, and I'm sad that first of all, I inserted myself. I already know. But I had a very good reason for chiming in, and there is a lot of stuff behind the scenes that I need to share with you guys.
Did I jump the gun on a situation that I didn't fully understand and chime in? Absolutely. And I am living with that every day. There's a lot of questions about my tweets, and I want to say that I regret them. I don't regret much in my life, but I regret hitting the send buttons. Before fully accusing an individual of doing anything, I need more facts.
It is important to mention that at the time, one of Davi's victims was coming forward and talking about their experience and alleging that Jeffree was complicit in abuse.
There is a survivor that has went on record saying, hey, Jeffree and his friends were present during me being there in these times. And 10 years ago, I don't remember that person. And I'm not going to pretend to follow a narrative of what people want me to say that I saw. But I never saw a child alone.
Can I
with
ask you a
this
question?
man.
Have any of these victims come forward and put you in a time and a place where
Yes.
you would have seen?
Yeah, one person has said that they saw me in an environment where they were alone with him and kissing. And I'm like, you guys, absolutely not.
So as a collective, people that were watching this go down, people were like, so he accused publicly Davi of doing inappropriate things with minors. He said it publicly that he had seen it with his own eyes, that this had happened. And then he later said he didn't see it and it was just people telling him that it happened and that he didn't have all of the facts. And it directly paralleled what happened with James, in that he had said that James was a predator and that he, you know, was a danger to society. And then later on was like, people lied to me. I didn't have all the facts. Repetitive behavior. I do want to play you one part of the interview, and it's when they're discussing Bye Sister and how all of that came to be. Here are a few clips that I edited together for brevity.
But there's this other situation that happened recently with James Charles, where when that whole thing went down, like you put out some tweets saying that there's a reason why my boyfriend isn't letting James come over to our house anymore. I'm not going to talk to him. Haven't seen him since Tati's birthday. He's a danger to society. And then you had a follow-up tweet where it was like basically saying, everyone keeps asking me for receipts. I have much to say. What's going on with that? Like,
what was the ending of all that? Like, where did that all end up?
I'll tell you. Okay, I'll tell you the ending.
Is James one thing? Real quick. Is James Charles a danger to society? Is he a predator?
Keem.
Listen,
that was a long pause. Long ass fucking pause though.
I have to ask this.
Listen. There's a long pause because it's a very complicated situation. So before I answer, the ending banks was me, James, and Tati, all making peace. And why?
I know, but like it's the same scenario though, because like if James is actually a danger, right? Then this is the opportunity, like the Darby thing, where you can say something. You know what I mean? Or is like maybe you shouldn't have put that tweet out. Like which one is it? Like I'm sorry, Jeffree, but I have to ask.
No, and I'm 100% comfortable with that. It's going to upset a lot of people, but the truth is that someone, and right now I legally can't say who, told us a few things. And we trusted that person's opinion. And then another person said some things that was friends with that man. And it really convinced us that he was a predator.
Is this another case of what happened before with the other guy?
No, this is some...
Is there a possibility of that? Because, I mean, they were telling you about this guy, which turned out to be true now. Is this possible with James?
Yeah, it's similar, but it's people that are in our community that are saying things, and I don't know if they're true or not.
But this is exactly the same thing that happened before, right?
It's actually not.
What?
So if you want, we can pause, and I can go in another room and play Banks, what I have on my phone, and he can determine if he would have sent the same tweet. At the end of the day, I'm not going to out a victim of James Charles.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's real because I don't know if it's real, and I'll go to the other room and play
these subjects to the subject that we're
because everyone wants to make me you ruined James Charles' career. No, Tati did and uploaded a 40-minute video about him, and she should have never uploaded that.
Yeah, that's why.
But she did, and for some reason, James thinks that me and Shane tried to ruin his life and orchestrated the whole thing. Like we fucking care.
Okay. Shane was coming out with this documentary on the beauty community, right? Which I was really excited about, right? And all this James Charles, Tati stuff was totally going to be involved. And then it morphed in to your guys' collaboration on your makeup. So like what happens? There had to have been a falling out behind the scenes that stopped that documentary from happening the way it was originally supposed to be, you know?
See, I wish it was juicier than that, but me and Shane really from the get-go wanted to show the business side about how to really create makeup. And I think that his trailer really insinuated that there was going to be a lot more drama.
Yeah.
And when the people behind the scenes who, we were working with, a lot of them didn't want to say things because it's all, no one's really going on the record.
The politics and stuff, yeah.
And people were very afraid and we couldn't get enough.
There's no proof that James is doing this. And then I came out in drama and I was like, yeah, guys, we got to stop the canceling of James Charles because there's really no proof to back it up that he is an actual predator. And there is still to this day no proof in the public that he is an actual predator.
You do have a testimony from an alleged victim in your possession. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he does. That's what he said.
It's just not someone saying this is an entire crime. It's just people told us some things. And I don't know till this day if they're true because they shut up and got quiet when the whole world and CNN cared about James, Tati, Jeffree.
Well, can you at least say what they were? The allegations, can we call it that? I don't know. What do you call it? Can we say what they were? Without saying the victim's name, the alleged victim's name, the person's name, or giving references which would give it away.
It's still an allegation. I think it's.
I just don't feel. I can't.
I wouldn't want you to anyway, because it's just one of those things. Like this is like
it's so
people on YouTube, and again all these filters.
This will
and
be
stuff,
talked about for a month now.
People are very like desensitized to these subjects, but at the end of the day, these are serious.
Everyone thinks this is tea and views and money. Not you guys specifically, but people out there do, and they really use this stuff, and it's really gross.
What really upsets me about this is that Jeffree has this voice note, right, of an alleged victim telling their story. Jeffree has said that he believes that this person is credible and this really happened. But he's just going to go ahead and just be friends with James Charles again. He's just going to kiss his butt and try to reconnect knowing that James did this to that person. And he's doing that, it seems, because that information can't be made public. Not because it didn't happen, but because it can't be made public. So that to me shows me that Jeffree didn't care really about the victims. All he cared was about the public perception of his association with somebody who did awful things. If people don't know or don't have the evidence that this person did awful things, oh, absolutely fine to be friends with them. But only when that evidence is going to come out would that person then be shunned. It is so fucked up. So fucked up. And based on what Tati said and what Jeffree has said, it seems that the predator allegations are believable. They say that they've seen patterns of behavior. They've heard this voice note. They know that he does things like this. But they're both cool with James now? Like how? How? Remember, we don't know this yet, but Tati has had that meeting with James in December talking about, comparing notes, saying that Jeffree and Shane had manipulated them. But that doesn't negate what Tati's seen with her own eyes. That paired with what we know James is going to do in 2021, sending pictures of himself to minors, we know now that James is a predator and they were seeing those signs back then. It's possible, and to me probable, that they feel like they just didn't have enough evidence that they could share publicly in order to make the case publicly, but they knew privately. And that's where I have a sticking point in my mind. Tati has said, James has said, that Tati tried to convince him to stop his behavior before it got worse. And it does get worse. There was about to be a bunch of people that were going to speak out and tell their stories about Jeffree being a piece of shit. That maybe if they spoke out, maybe if they told their stories, something would happen. And then began the snowball of what people thought, including me, would be the forever cancellation of Jeffree Star. So people were coming out of the woodwork telling their Jeffree Star stories, their Jeffree's terrible stories. This started in June of 2020 when Cam Lester uploaded an Instagram story denouncing Jeffree and Shane specifically, saying that he feared speaking out would put his life in jeopardy, but he felt like the public needed to know what terrible people Jeffree and Shane were. Specifically Jeffree. He really honed in on Jeffree.
And I was in his hotel and we were just chilling. We were talking to Rich Lux again and a few other people, and I was talking to Jeffree, and I remember Shane Dawson called, and he was going off about James Charles and something, and telling, like, just like cursing James out, and I was just like kind of taken back because I've never seen Shane Dawson like that, and he was just going in on James. And I was like, oh, is there like there's something like brewing, there's something going on with James and Shane and Jeffree. So I was just uncomfortable, and I just was like, I'm gonna stay over here. But I knew from there, I knew Shane wasn't the person that he was perceived online. 3 months later, James had his scandal. And I always remember holding that and being like, OMG, maybe I could have came to James and maybe gave him like a warning or told him like something happened or something was about to happen, and I felt it. And I always felt like a little guilty for not ever saying anything or confessing to James because he helped me in the beginning, and I felt like I wasn't a true friend, and I really am apologetic towards James for not speaking up and not having the courage at the time to speak up for him, because I knew 3 months before he had that scandal, something bad was going to happen. Got to a point where I just felt like I was being used as a black boy. I felt like I was always defending Jeffree on Twitter. I was always going in, but I never got the same in return energy from him. Everyone's like coming for me like, aren't you like a Jeffree Star stan? So I'm labeled as this, supporting a racist person or something like that. And I'm like, he sees what's going on because he's favoring the tweets under it, but he's not sticking up for me or and I continue to speak up for him and stick up for him. And I just felt like it wasn't a friendship. It was never a friendship in the beginning to start with. It was always something like, I was kind of like the token black kid. I am very proud to be black. I apologize to my black community for, not saying something sooner when I knew what the truth was. I'm not saying that he has done anything racist to me. I'm not saying that he's racist, but I feel like there is race involved with it. I feel like I do benefit him and I benefited from him. So it was a tick for tack situation, but moving forward, I will no longer just be the token black person. I will no longer just be the black boy that is there to make you look good. I literally have feared for my life for even speaking on this. I fear doing this live right now. I fear who's watching this. I fear people that are going to watch this. I feared for my life. I was so paranoid and so scared of this man. I thought that he could hire a hitter and kill me because he knows my PR address and he knows my address, he knows where I live, and he'll hire someone to kill me. And I was like, I don't want to go on my platform and something. Like, I really was that paranoid, and that's how scared I was.
The next day, a friend of Jeffree's named Tab uploaded a video called I Was Jeffree Star's Friend, The Truth. He accused him of being an overall just terrible person, including using a Jewish slur, making fun of Trisha Paytas, making fun of Rich Lux, and about being all about views and fame and money.
We were supposed to go see Gwen Stefani actually live in concert. And basically she canceled the show. So we were all figuring out what we were gonna do for the night. And I had stepped outside on the patio and Jeffree told me, wow, I can't believe she canceled the show, and continued to say a very derogatory word towards Jewish people. It starts with a K. I'm not gonna repeat the word, but that's what he said in the security guard. So when we were walking to his hotel room, which was a couple of rooms down from Jeffree's at the time, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he had told me a story about how he was an ex-police officer, and he had got fired in Miami for saying the N-word on the job, and Jeffree flew him from Miami to be his personal bodyguard or security guard or whatever, knowing that about his past. We get back from the club, it's probably around 5 a.m, and there had been a friend earlier in the night that was in the room that didn't attend the club with us. I'm not going to mention the name, but they had continued to make fun of this person all day, talk about how bad their skin was, body shame them, talk about their weight, talk about their past drug abuse, talk about their recovery, just the most disgusting, horrible things for him, his crew who does hair and makeup, who works in the industry, to say he had brought up Black China, a woman of color, and talking about how stupid she was. And there was a particular time in the night where this guy named Rich Lux, or whatever his name is, he had come up to the hotel room with 2 security guards, or whatever that was about, and he had bought Jeffree a gift from Hermes, the same store we were at earlier. And Jeffree let him stay in the room for a good 10-15 minutes. The second he left the room, Jeffree tells me and everyone else in the room, like, yeah, he got me the cheapest thing in the store. And it's just funny, I already have that. The reason why I mention that is because he has a tendency to just talk bad about everybody. And it really just sucks. And the way that he talks and treats people when not being filmed and not on the internet is a completely different situation than what he posts on the internet.
The day after that came the video from Ashley Kyle that we talked about in part 3, where she had the title, "I was on Jeffree Star's payroll." To be clear, this was a clickbait title. Ashley was never paid, according to her. She talks about in the first few minutes of her video. She was never paid by Jeffree Star to put out specific information. But what happened is that Jeffree ended up giving her information so that she could upload her videos early and get more views and ad money on her videos. And she ended up making a lot of money because of this information that Jeffree was feeding her. And what Jeffree got in return was that he had somebody pushing his narrative out to the public. Another creator named Leah McAvoy on the exact same day uploaded the hidden allegations against Jeffree Star and analysis. That was a really interesting piece that really broke things down for the viewers in a very clear way. 2 days later, original beauty drama channel Sanders Kennedy basically copied Ashley Kyle's homework and made the essentially same video. I was on Jeffree Star's payroll too, leaking his messages to me. This was also a clickbait video that he was never on Jeffree Star's payroll. He basically just said that Jeffree gave him information too and showed some of the screenshots of Jeffree giving him information. People were not happy with Sanders about that video, if I remember correctly. But it was that collective over and over, so many voices speaking out about Jeffree that really stood out during this time. But just when Jeffree thought things couldn't get any worse, they got a lot worse because a website resurfaced. And this was, Jeffree called it like a landing page for a mock makeup company that he says he wasn't ever planning on launching, but it looks like it could have been. We're never going to really know. It was called Lipstick Nazi, and there's pictures of him showing self-harm, pictures of him with a Confederate flag. It's really, really bad. And I want to send this message home that all of this happened in a period of 8 days. It was like boom, boom, boom. Jeffree's terrible, Jeffree's terrible, Jeffree's terrible. Look, here's the evidence. Here's the evidence, just wallpapering the entirety of the internet. So if people didn't know that Jeffree was a terrible person, they should know now. But the thing about fans is that sometimes fans, all they need is a little bit of spin to turn the story and make excuses for their favorite people. But more on that in a minute, because people weren't just coming after Jeffree Star, they were going after Shane Dawson too. Remember how I said that Shane had reinvented himself as this like quirky documentary filmmaker, this underdog, this fun-loving, caring guy? Yeah, a lot of people that didn't know that wasn't who he used to be were about to find out. People started sharing the content that Shane had been making with his entire chest, and it was terrible. If this video were about Shane, I would show you all of the things, but there's enough gross in this video without me adding. Just know it's terrible, like the things he used to do. He was trying to be like a Howard Stern, shock jock kind of character, and the things that he used to do on his channel, imagine the worst things that you could possibly do to be offensive. He did all of them, like all of them. And after I found out this about Shane, I watched some of his old content, and it's not even funny. The content's awful. Like, it's terribly produced. I don't even know why anybody would even watch that stuff other than to validate their own feelings of racism or sexism or or all the things that he showed in those videos. It was terrible. The content was awful. So as people are finding things and they're blowing up Shane's spot all over social media, Shane freaked out and he put up a post on Twitter that went down in history as one of the most atrocious Twitter I don't even know what it was. Let's just talk about it. It was called "Welcome to the Circus." The big thing you need to know about it was his big announcement about leaving the beauty community. And me, as a person who had been in the beauty community for a really long time, I was like, what? Like, at this point, I've been on the platform for 8 years producing beauty content, and Shane's gonna come in as a tourist and sell a bunch of stuff, make millions of dollars, and then just be like, I'm leaving the beauty community. And it's like, bitch, get on your cruise ship and just get out of here. You never were a citizen of our country. Like, can you imagine like going to a country and like claiming you're a citizen and then just being like, you know what, never mind. Like, I'm just gonna leave. Like, that was the vibe. So the Welcome to the Circus post, it is very, very long. It's really, really long. So I'm gonna put screenshots on the video for you, but I'm also gonna link it down below so you can read it at your leisure, and maybe it'll be an easier format for you, because I do think that it's worth reading all the way through, but it's just, I can't read the whole thing in this. It's too much. So I'm just gonna summarize it for you. This is what you need to know. He vehemently denies having any part of Tati's bi sister, and that he regrets including clips in his trailer for The Beautiful World of Jeffree Star. And then he goes on to his final thoughts on the beauty world. And he says that though he enjoyed working with Jeffree on the conspiracy palette, he's done with drama in the space, and saying, quote, the beauty gurus who are always involved in scandals are all the same. They are all attention-seeking, game-playing, egocentric, narcissistic, vengeful, two-faced, ticking time bombs ready to explode, and I'm over it. But Shane admits Jeffree's part of that, but he sees Jeffree as family and loves him anyway. And then this is when Shane starts his flounce message to the beauty community, saying it's, quote, draining, exhausting, depressing, and sometimes amazing. But for me, the amazing is outweighed by the bad. That he wasn't surprised that Tati had made bi sister, but he was surprised that Tati, quote, read his ass for fucking filth. Shane says he believes Tati had good intentions, but understands that Tati probably regrets making the video. And that James isn't a poor, innocent, sweet angel, and that Jeffree is the top of the dramatic guru list. Then comes the quote that people remember. Do I think James is the devil? No. Do I think he was a young, egocentric, power-hungry guru who needed to be served a slice of humble pie the size of the fucking Empire State Building? Yes. Regarding Tati, he felt like she was sick of being treated like shit by so many in the beauty world and finally snapped, and that Jeffree was upset with James and was probably excited to see him fail. He's Jeffree fucking Star. What do you expect? I guess I missed the part where he got baptized and devoted his life to Christ. I mean, this post is awful. He does say that Jeffree took things too far and he regrets his part in it. Shane stresses that this was over a year ago and he's tired of the drama channels talking about it, and then he apologizes to Tati and James for putting bi sister and No More Lies in his trailer because it opened old wounds. And then he says something, I'm paraphrasing, of course, it's something that I often say with my friend Audra. You know, watching the drama is interesting, but you don't want to be the drama. That's the general gist of what he's saying here. Shane then cautions the audience not to hold beauty gurus on a pedestal, and that the reason why people watch them is because they're so extra, and canceling them would make the beauty space boring, and that they are the circus. And then Shane, and this got me, he goes after smaller beauty creators who say that they stay out of the drama, and to this he says, girl, please, your top viewed videos are probably top makeup fails and anti-hauls with vomit emojis all over the screen. That content is fine, but don't say that your channels don't thrive on the negative. Like there's a comparison there. anyway. The final hurrah begins, telling people to enjoy the circus and unsubscribe from him and others if people don't like certain content. And he requests that people not take the beauty world too seriously. The next part's probably something he should not have said based on what happens next. He says, I need to get back to why I started YouTube back in 2005, and that was to make things that bring me joy, not drama, and to make movies one day. Hashtag foreshadowing. Then we get to the last slide, which is One Last Edition, which was posted shortly after when people started reacting to the rest of the post. And this is where he kind of clarifies things. He says it wasn't okay for the internet to bully James, and he felt it went too far. And that, quote, me saying he needed to be humbled isn't mean, it's honest. And he said that in his own video. Should the humbling have happened off camera? Yes, which I said, but I guess I didn't word that right. And I'm sorry if my humor regarding Tati's videos seemed like I was making light of the situation. Humor is how I deal with stuff, especially when it involves the insanity of the beauty world. Then he says he's leaving Twitter for a few months and that he's sorry and that it wasn't the tea people wanted, but I'm officially done with tea. So the next day, Shane deleted the tweets. They were gone. And he could not put the toothpaste back in the tube, as I have heard recently. Love that phrase now. He opened the can of worms to looking deeper into his content from 2005 and was about to get very ugly for Shane Dawson. I do promise you that this series is about James Charles and not Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star, but I think that this is important context to James's story because it directly relates to how James continues in his life after this. There is a little bit more of this piece of the story to tell, but I am going to try to keep it as short as possible because we're almost to breaking my silence. We are almost there. Hang with me. On June 25th of 2020, 5 days after Welcome to the Circus, Shane's friend Blair teased on an Instagram story that she was going to come out against Jeffree. Allegedly, Jeffree calls Blair, tries to get her to stop her from doing it. She is basically like, nope, I'm gonna do it. Then Shane calls her, tries to get her to stop her from doing it. Nothing's stopping Blair. This video is going up. And I don't know if that was part of the motivation for Shane uploading his video taking accountability. I honestly don't know. I would imagine it was a factor, but Shane says specifically the reason why he created his taking accountability video was because of Jenna Marbles, of all people, because Jenna actually the previous week had uploaded her last video to YouTube where she came out and said about some of her racist past and the things that she had created back around the same time that Shane was creating the awful content, and Jenna Marbles left and she has not been back since. And Shane says that he was inspired by Jenna's video to make this video. The tone of the video is somber, and in the video he acknowledges his past racist content, including blackface and making jokes with harmful stereotypes about Black, Asian, and Mexican people. He apologizes for jokes about pedophilia and animal abuse. And I remember watching this and being like, what the like, what? Like, just awful. Like, what? And then he starts talking about James Charles and he apologizes to James for Dramageddon 2.
So last week I went on Twitter and it had been about 2 weeks of me getting people constantly saying, address it, address it, address it, talking about the James and Tati situation. I was just gonna ignore it. And then when I started hearing, oh, Shane mastermind, the whole thing, it didn't sit well with me because it's not true. So when I finally addressed it, I wrote this Twitter note, which was such a mistake. So I sat down and I wrote that essay, which I wrote it to be funny. It didn't come across that way. It came across very angry, which it was, but it was also supposed to be funny. It just was a huge miss in every single way. So the part of the Twitter note that I regret more than anything in my life was the part where I said that James deserved a slice of humble pie the size of the Empire State Building. I only want to talk about this situation with love because I feel like that note had so much anger in it. It was just not good. And so I'm going to come at this situation by first apologizing. I'm sorry, James. I'm really sorry. First of all, nobody deserves what happened. Nobody. The whole internet ganging up on someone. Nobody deserved that. And who am I to say that somebody needs to be humbled? Me. Like, who am I to say that? I literally have put so much hate onto the internet over my last 15 years of YouTube world. Like, I have put so much shit, and I'm sitting here like, well, because I changed and because I'm nice and this and that, like, yeah, you need to be humbled. It's like, that sucks. I hate that. That was so immature and gross, and I'm so sorry. And I know a lot of people were saying that, well, why did you say you're leaving the beauty community? You were never in it. And you're right. I don't know why I said that. That was stupid. I was never in the beauty world, because a lot of the beauty people that I watch, and I'm not just saying that, I think a lot of people think I'm lying when I say I really love the makeup world and I'm really invested in it. I'm not lying. For the last year, I've been watching beauty channels every day. My whole homepage is just beauty channels, and it's smaller ones. So to know that I hurt those people who aren't problematic and who just love makeup and who have been working their ass off for years, for me to shit on that, I am so sorry.
So Shane uploads this video, but things ended up getting worse for him because a very famous family ended up chiming in on this old clip of Shane's that had resurfaced. It was a video of Shane looking like he was pleasuring himself. This is really gross. I hate even saying it out loud, but it looks like he was, but I think it's relevant to the story, that it looks like he was pleasuring himself to a poster of Willow Smith, who was only 11 years old at the time. So of course, Jada Pinkett Smith and Jaden Smith are outraged seeing this, and they put out public statements. Now, Jaden's tweet is no longer available, but it was captured by a news organization. So I'm going to put the screenshot from the article about it on the screen. Jada's post is still up, and this story did make mainstream media. It was horrible. Like there's just no words to describe how terrible Shane's content was back then. Like, I don't know how YouTube at that time even allowed this content to exist. Like, it makes absolutely no sense to me. And what you need to know about Shane and this part of the story is that his channel never fully recovered. He didn't upload any content to his channel for about 3 months before he did come back. Unfortunately, millions of fans were excited to see him when he did come back. But like I said, his channel never fully recovered. Prior to all of this, his videos were averaging about 26 million views per video. And now he's averaging about 4.5 million views a video. And in any other context, that sounds like an amazing success story, like what I would kill to get 40.5 million views on a video that Shane's getting right now. But this is an 83% decrease in the amount of views Shane was getting. And what's important about the taking accountability video and what Shane talks about James in that video is that he admits that he didn't have all of the story, he didn't have all of the facts, and he believed things that were being told to him. The same story that Tati has told, the same story that Jeffree has told. They're all kind of blaming each other at this point. And I think this collective apology was a vindication of sorts in the public eye, because it gives the impression that all three of them were just making everything up and that James wasn't at all a predator, that he was 100% innocent, which was actually not true. But we didn't know that at the time. All we saw was the three people that accused him of being a predator had all apologized to him. But we do need to get back to Blair, because remember, Blair is sitting on this video that she's going to upload that Jeffree and Shane have both begged her not to upload. Blair uploads it, and it is called "By Jeffree Star, You're a Monster."
And one of the reasons I definitely decided to do this video, and made me so sick, is that Jeffree went on a podcast recently and teased the same receipt, the same voice memo from the YouTuber who was allegedly sexually molested by James Charles to FaZe Banks and Keemstar.
So if you want, we can pause and I can go in another room and play Banks, what I have on my phone, and he can determine if he would have sent the same tweet.
So you're running around telling these people like it's hot, fun, gossip, whatever. And like I said before, it's not to me. All I know is my opinion and experience with Jeffree, who I believe tried to manipulate the fuck out of me, is blackmailing people on topics of sexual predation, in my opinion, needs help, and is far from a healthy, stable, good person. And I just don't want to be one of those people anymore that is scared to speak against Jeffree fucking Star. Done. See you guys in the next video. Oh, and if my body's found dead in a ditch somewhere, it's Jeffree Star.
What this all comes down to is that Shane, Tati, Jeffree, Blair, and however many people knew that James was being inappropriate. They knew this was part of who James was. They knew he had the potential to really hurt people. They saw things with their own eyes. They heard stories from other people. But the only real evidence that they had was a voice note from someone that didn't want to make their story public. Because of this, at the end of part 3 of this series, James looked innocent. And he was about to look even more innocent because Tati was about to break her silence. Through all of this, Tati has had a very somber tone when it comes to the entire debacle from Bye Sister all the way to the present. She never celebrated his downfall. She never seemed to be happy about the way things were going, the way that Jeffree seemed to be. After No More Lies, Tati's credibility was tarnished. James had dropped receipts when no one else had. He had shown how Tati had turned on him and how Jeffree had been horrible to him behind the scenes. He talked about his mental health struggles as his career was crashing down, and he alluded to how the actions of others led him to almost take his own life.
I'm almost glad that it happened because I feel like I'm the strongest and like most happy and motivated that I have ever been in my entire life because of it. And I'm really grateful. I'm grateful for my team, for always helping me and pushing me to, get up and just work my ass off. I'm helpful to my best friends, especially the ones that were with me in Australia that kept me from making a really, really dangerous, irreversible choice that I would not have been able to take back. Because if it weren't for them, I would not be alive today. And they know who they are. And I'm just really happy to be here.
We're definitely on James's side right now, and Tati had to decide what she was going to do next. Tati's Breaking My Silence went down in history as her biggest backtrack. I've been playing clips of it throughout the series because it fills holes in the timeline as to what was happening behind the scenes that we didn't know as it was happening. What I want to talk about in this part of this video is why people had a problem with Breaking My Silence. What was the big issue people had with it? The first thing was that there were so many disconnects between the information and the tone of Bye Sister versus Breaking My Silence. In Bye Sister, Tati said that she was uploading because she felt betrayed and because she felt like James was going down the wrong path and she needed to figure out how to get his attention to stop him. But in Breaking My Silence, it was all about Shane and Jeffree manipulated me. I don't know what happened. Shane and Jeffree manipulated me. It was strange. And people wondered if she was so close to James Charles, why didn't she answer his texts? Why didn't she pick up the phone? Why didn't she talk to him? And my thought, and this is just from me watching all of this from the outside and like living with these people for months and watching their behavior, is I personally think that Tati didn't answer the phone because she knew how smart James is. And I do believe that James is very intelligent and very manipulative. And I think Tati thought that if she talked to James, that he would manipulate her and not tell her the truth and tug on her heartstrings in a way that would make her feel like she shouldn't upload Bye Sister when she felt like that was the right thing to do. She believed so much in what Jeffree and Shane were telling her, in what she had seen in his behavior over the years. She believed so much in that she had that feeling she really needed to upload Bye Sister, and talking to James may have stopped her and she didn't want to stop. That's just my thought. That's just what I think. And I think she felt conflicted in the same way that Blair felt conflicted. Jeffree had played Tati the voice note, and she felt like she needed to do something, even though she couldn't go to the police, she couldn't make the victim speak out, she couldn't stop him in that way, but maybe creating Bye Sister would be the thing that would stop him from escalating into more harmful behavior. Similar to the way that Blair was saying, what am I supposed to do with this information? Now I'm burdened with this. What do I do now? I think Tati may have had a very similar feeling. I think Tati knew that James had the potential of really hurting somebody, but because he hadn't done it yet, it put her in a very strange position. And Tati thought that all of that information was going to be exposed in Shane's documentary, and when it wasn't, all she could do was apologize. That was it. Because most of the things, it seems, that Jeffree had told her seemed to be lies. And building on that, I think people also felt a disconnect in the difference of the tone of the two videos. The first video, Tati seemed to be in control. She's like, this is it. This is what's happening. This is the way that it is. And this is how I feel. And this is what I need to do. And then in Breaking My Silence, it was all Shane and Jeffree manipulated me. And some people interpreted that as a deflecting of responsibility, kind of saying, I know I said all of those things, but I was manipulated and it's not my fault. But I think the most damaging thing for Tati was the flip-flop on James's character. She hadn't directly said that James was a predator in her video, but the things that she was talking about were predatory actions. Like how she was saying that James was trying to convince straight men that they were gay and trying to mess with their sexuality before they had a chance to even figure it out for themselves. And using his power and influence in order to get people to do things that they wouldn't normally do. That's all predatory behavior. But in Breaking My Silence, she apologizes for damaging his reputation. So it made people think, it's like, so was he being predatory or not?
Back in December 2019, after Shane and Jeffree's series ended, James Charles came to my LA home and we compared DMs, texts, and stories about what had happened behind the scenes. We apologized to each other, forgave each other, and agreed to wait patiently until it was safe for me to share my story. Since that night, James Charles has repeatedly said that he wanted to be beside me for this video. But I felt it was important that I do it alone. Because he deserves my first apology. And I am really sorry, James. And I've said that privately, but I want you to hear it publicly. I'm sorry.
Was it all based on Jeffree not knowing all of the facts? Is that what the whole thing was based on? It didn't seem to be at the time. In Breaking My Silence, I think the biggest thing for Tati fans was a loss of a trust in Tati's judgment, that she would trust her emotions over her rational brain. And people used her age as a reasoning for this, that she was the oldest person involved in the situation, that she should have been less emotional and been more practical. Apologizing to James was seen as a big backtrack, and in that, it was to a lot of people a sign of weakness. And also a lack of accountability for her part in uploading Bye Sister. In looking back, a lot of people blame Breaking My Silence for the lifting up of James Charles, for the final vindication, for the encouragement of his ego and his behavior to continue. Because I think Breaking My Silence was the final piece in leaving James Charles completely unchecked. And this is what may have led to the escalation that gets so bad that he starts DMing pictures of himself to minors. And just a warning, this story is about to get horrible. And speaking of that, as I was writing the script and printing it out and looking at the length of it, I really do feel like we need a little bit of a break. The story is not over, but I think a little breather here is going to be a good thing. Looking at the length of the script, I have about an hour's worth of talking at you left to do, and the length of this video already is extremely long. So I hate it when Nick Snyder is correct, because he called it and said that this was going to be a 5-part series. And it turns out Nick is right. I obviously have no time judgment as far as how long things are going to be. I'm learning this about myself. Never trust me when it comes to understanding time. I cannot be trusted. So the good news, though, is I'm actually going to film it right now. I have all of the notes. I have it already. I'm going to film it now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on editing this first part for you and getting that up for you, and then having part 5, which will be the final part. will be the final part up for you as soon as humanly possible. I'm just going to need to edit it. I will not tell you when it is going up. I will tell you I am going out of town for a creator event next week. So I'm hoping I'll be able to finish the editing before I go out of town. But I am filming it right now. So it will be soon. Way sooner than I've promised in the past, but it's not going to be today. But the next part will be the end. And I can tell you it's the end because I've written the conclusion and it's sitting right in front of me. So just know that it is coming. I hope you found today's video interesting and that it helped bring your understanding of the situation to a different level. I would love to hear your thoughts on anything I talked about in the comment section down below. What are you thinking right now? Have your opinions changed? Have they reinforced other opinions that you've had in the past about this situation? Any and all thoughts, as long as they're respectful, are welcome in the comment section down below. Thank you again for watching. Mad love to you, and I will see you in a video very soon.